First contact and conflict. The vast emptiness of space had always beckoned humanity, a siren call that promised adventure and discovery. But on that fateful day in 2157, as the long-range sensors of the UES horizon lit up with unprecedented activity, Captain Elena Rodriguez realized that humanity's greatest adventure might also be its most perilous. Status report, she barked, her eyes fixed on the main view screen as it flickered to life, displaying a sea of alien vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. Lieutenant Commander Aiden Chen's fingers danced across his console. Captain, I'm detecting over 300 ships of various sizes. Energy readings are off the charts. They're not like anything we've ever encountered. Elena's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. Open a channel. All frequencies. As the communication officer worked to establish contact, Elena couldn't help but marvel at the sight before her. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, constructing a fleet of ships capable of traversing the galaxy, developing technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics. Yet, in the face of this alien armada, she felt like a child holding a candle to the sun. The view screen crackled, and a face appeared, if one could call it that. Multiple eyes blinked in an unsettling rhythm, set in a head that seemed more crystalline than flesh. When it spoke, the words came through the ship's universal translator in a monotone that sent chills down Elena's spine. Humans, your presence has been noted. Your expansion ends here. Retreat to your home system or face annihilation. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Elena's mind raced. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. Where was the exchange of knowledge, the diplomatic overtures, the shared wonder of two species meeting for the first time? Orders, Captain. Commander Yuki Tanaka, her first officer, asked quietly. Elena straightened her uniform. We came in peace, but we won't leave in pieces. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. We need to warn the Alliance. As the horizon turned and engaged its faster-than-light drive, leaving the alien fleet behind, Elena knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. Back on Earth, the news of the alien ultimatum spread like wildfire. Emergency sessions were called in every major government. The United Earth Alliance headquarters buzzed with frantic activity, and civilians worldwide alternated between panic and defiance. In the heart of Geneva, inside the Alliance's Central Command, Admiral Marcus Hayes paced before a group of the world's most influential leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice grave, we stand at a crossroads. For centuries, we've looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we have our answer, and it comes with a threat. Holographic displays flickered around the room, showing the alien fleet's estimated capabilities and potential invasion routes. Our diplomatic teams have made repeated attempts to establish peaceful communication, Hayes continued. All have been rebuffed. The aliens, who call themselves the Concordiate, demand nothing less than our complete retreat from all colonies and outposts beyond our solar system. Murmurs of outrage filled the room. Humanity had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to establish its presence among the stars. The thought of abandoning it all was unthinkable. President Adama Nkrumah of the African Union stood, his presence commanding attention. What are our options, Admiral? Surely we cannot simply acquiesce to these demands. Hayes nodded grimly. We've been preparing for the possibility of hostile alien contact for decades. Project Bulwark was designed for just such a contingency. He gestured, and a new set of holograms appeared, showcasing advanced weapon systems, shield technologies, and ships that had been developed in secret. We've made significant advancements in quantum entanglement communication, allowing for instantaneous coordination across vast distances. Our latest generation of AI-assisted combat systems can adapt to unknown threats in real time. And he paused for effect. We have several experimental technologies that could turn the tide in our favor. The room buzzed with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Humanity had always prided itself on its ability to innovate, to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. But this was beyond anything they had ever faced. Dr. Yuki Sakamoto, the lead scientist of Project Bulwark, stepped forward. While the Concordiate's technology is indeed advanced, we've observed some peculiarities in their approach. They seem to rely heavily on brute force and overwhelming numbers. Our analysis suggests that they may lack the adaptability and creative problem-solving that humans excel at. As the discussion continued, strategies were proposed and debated. Some advocated for a preemptive strike, others for a defensive posture. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone in the room. In the end, it was President Nkrumah who summed up the collective resolve. Throughout our history, humanity has faced countless challenges. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. We've reached for the stars not because it was easy, but because it was hard. Now we face our greatest test yet, but I believe, I know, that we will prevail. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each leader. We will not retreat. We will not surrender. We will stand our ground, protect our people, and show these aliens that humanity is not to be underestimated. The room erupted in determined applause. As the applause died down, Admiral Hayes stepped forward once more. Then let us begin. Operation Defiant Stand is now in effect. May God have mercy on us all, for I doubt the Concordiate will. As the meeting adjourned and leaders dispersed to set the grand plan in motion, a flurry of activity engulfed the planet. Shipyards that had been dormant for years roared to life. Research facilities worked around the clock to refine new technologies. And in homes across Earth and its colonies, families huddled together, watching the news with bated breath. Humanity had always wondered if it was alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth, and it had come with a price. The stars that had once beckoned with promise now loomed with threat. But in the face of this cosmic challenge, the human spirit, resilient, innovative, and fiercely determined, stood ready. The opening salvos of the greatest conflict in human history were about to be fired, and against all odds, humanity prepared to fight for its very existence among the stars. The human advantage. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon of Mars, Major Zara Khoury stood atop the towering spire of Olympus Station, her eyes fixed on the stars above. In the 2 months since first contact, those twinkling lights had transformed from beacons of hope to harbingers of doom. Yet, as she watched a fleet of newly christened warships take formation in low orbit, a fierce pride swelled in her chest. Impressive, isn't it? A voice came from behind her. Dr. Elias Vega, the station's chief scientist, joined her at the observation deck. Zara nodded, her eyes still on the ships above. Humanity united in the face of extinction. Who would have thought? Elias chuckled, but there was a tinge of sadness in his voice. It's always been our way. Push us to the brink, and we push back harder. Below them, Olympus Station hummed with activity. What had once been a research outpost was now the front line of humanity's defense. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, refining technologies that might give Earth a fighting chance against the Concordiate. How's Project Phoenix coming along? Zara asked, finally turning to face the scientist. Elias's eyes lit up with excitement. We've had a breakthrough. The quantum entanglement drive is stable. We can now teleport small objects across vast distances instantaneously. Zara's eyebrows shot up. That's incredible. But how does it help us in combat? Imagine, Elias said, gesturing expansively, being able to teleport torpedoes directly into enemy ships, bypassing their shields entirely, or evacuating wounded soldiers from the battlefield in the blink of an eye. As they discussed the implications, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Zara's comm unit crackled to life. Major Khoury to the command center immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The command center was a hive of controlled chaos when Zara arrived. Holographic displays showed a massive Concordiate fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Jessica Chen, The newly appointed commander of Earth's defense forces stood at the center of the room, her face a mask of determination. "They're earlier than we expected, but we're as ready as we'll ever be. Major Curry, you'll be leading Phantom Squadron. Your mission is to test the new stealth tech and gather intel on their fleet composition." Zara saluted sharply. "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." As she raced to the hangar, Zara's mind whirled with a mixture of fear and excitement. The ships she would be piloting were unlike anything humanity had ever created. Sleek black vessels that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible to both the eye and sensors. Her squadron assembled quickly, each pilot a top graduate from the newly established Solar Defense Academy. As they strapped into their cockpits, Zara addressed her team. "Remember your training. We're not here to engage, just observe. But if things go sideways, trust in your instincts and in each other. Humanity is counting on us." With a thought, Zara activated her neural interface, feeling the ship become an extension of herself. As one Phantom Squadron lifted off, their engines silent, their hulls shimmering before fading from view. The journey to the outer solar system was tense but uneventful. As they approached the Concordiate fleet, the true scale of the alien armada became apparent. Massive ships, some the size of small moons, moved with an eerie grace through the void. "Phantom lead to control," Zara whispered, though she knew the communication was secure. "We're in position. Beginning scan." For the next hour, Phantom Squadron weaved through the alien fleet, their advanced sensors drinking in data. The Concordiate ships were indeed impressive, bristling with weapon emplacements and surrounded by energy fields that shimmered with power. But as they observed, Zara began to notice something. The alien ships, for all their might, moved in rigid formations. Their maneuvers were precise but predictable. It was as if they were following a script, with little room for improvisation. Suddenly, alarms blared in Zara's cockpit. "Phantom lead to all units. Evasive maneuvers. We've been detected." A barrage of energy beams lanced out from the nearest Concordiate ship, filling space with deadly light. Zara's hands flew over her controls, her ship dancing between the beams with an agility that surprised even her. "Phantom 3, on your 6. She shouted, watching in horror as one of her squad mates was clipped by a beam, sending the ship into a spin. Without thinking, Zara dove towards the stricken vessel. "Control, emergency teleport for Phantom 3 now." There was a moment of tension, then a flash of light. The pilot of Phantom 3 vanished from his cockpit, safely transported back to Olympus Station. "All units, fall back to Rally Point Alpha," Zara commanded, her heart racing. As they retreated, weaving through the storm of enemy fire, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had been outgunned, yes, but not outmaneuvered. Back at Olympus Station, the data collected by Phantom Squadron was analyzed with feverish intensity. Admiral Chen pored over the reports, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Their technology is advanced," she mused, "but their tactics are rigid, predictable." Dr. Vega nodded enthusiastically. "And did you see how our stealth tech held up? They only detected Phantom Squadron when they passed within a few kilometers of their sensors. We have an advantage there." Zara, still catching her breath from the mission, spoke up. "Their ships are powerful, but they lack the flexibility we have. In a prolonged engagement, that could make all the difference." Admiral Chen's eyes glinted with determination. "Then that's what we'll focus on. Our adaptability, our creativity. We may not match them in firepower, but we'll outthink them at every turn." Over the next few weeks, as the Concordiate fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, humanity's forces engaged in a series of hit-and-run attacks. Stealth ships would appear out of nowhere, launching quantum-entangled torpedoes that bypassed alien shields, then vanish before the enemy could respond. Earth's scientists worked tirelessly, analyzing every scrap of data from each engagement. They discovered that the Concordiate's energy weapons, while powerful, had a slight lag between firing cycles. This microsecond delay became the cornerstone of humanity's defensive strategy. New shield systems were developed that pulsed in sync with the enemy's weapon cycles, providing maximum protection at the critical moment of impact. Pilots were trained to exploit this rhythm, darting into attack during the brief windows of vulnerability. But the Concordiat was not to be underestimated. As they approached Mars, they unleashed a new weapon, a gravity bomb that warped space-time itself. The outer colonies on Phobos and Deimos were twisted out of existence, their inhabitants lost in an instant. The loss was devastating, but it only steeled humanity's resolve. Dr. Vega and his team worked around the clock, studying the effects of the gravity bomb. Within days, they had prototypes for a countermeasure, devices that could create localized pockets of stable space-time. As the final battle for Mars loomed, Admiral Chen gathered her forces. Ships of all sizes, from nimble fighters to massive battlecruisers, assembled in a display of unity that would have been unthinkable just months ago. "We stand at the precipice," Chen addressed the fleet, her voice carried to every ship and station in the system. "The enemy thought to find us easy prey, a young species ripe for conquest. But they underestimated the strength of the human spirit, our creativity, our adaptability, our unwavering determination in the face of impossible odds." She paused, looking out at the assembled fleet, a glint of fierce pride in her eyes. "Today, we show the Concordiat and the galaxy what it means to be human. We fight not just for our survival, but for our right to forge our own destiny among the stars. For Earth, for humanity, for our future. Attack." As one, the fleet surged forward, a dazzling array of human ingenuity and courage hurtling towards the alien armada. The battle that would decide the fate of humanity had begun, and against all odds, there was hope. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the two forces clashed, the void filling with light and fury. Humanity's smaller, more agile ships darted between the Concordiat's massive vessels, exploiting every weakness, every moment of hesitation. Quantum-entangled torpedoes blinked into existence inside alien ships, wreaking havoc. Stealth bombers appeared and disappeared like ghosts, leaving destruction in their wake. And at the forefront, Zera led Phantom Squadron in a dance of death, weaving impossible patterns through enemy fire. For the first time since the conflict began, the Concordiat fleet faltered. Their rigid tactics crumbled in the face of humanity's unpredictable assault. As ships on both sides fell to the relentless exchange of fire, it became clear that this battle would not be decided by technology alone, but by the indomitable will of those who fought. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, with Mars as the final line of defense. But in the crucible of this cosmic conflict, the true strength of the human spirit was about to be revealed. Alien perspective and counterattack. In the crystalline depths of the Concordiat command ship, Overseer Zix Trawl watched the battle unfold with growing unease. The holo-displays surrounding him pulsed with information, each flicker representing the loss of another ship, another failure against these unpredictable humans. "Impossible," he muttered, his multifaceted eyes blinking in rapid succession. "They are but children in the cosmos. How can they resist us so effectively?" Senior strategist Krelnax approached, his crystalline form shimmering with barely contained agitation. "Overseer, our standard tactics are proving inadequate. The humans display a level of adaptability we have not encountered in millennia." Zixtrol's tendrils writhed in frustration. The Concordiat had subjugated dozens of species across the galaxy, each conquest following a predictable pattern. But these humans, they defied every model, every simulation. "Tell me, Krelnax," Zixtrol said, his voice a low hum, "what do we truly know about these creatures?" Krelnax activated a holo display, showcasing various human activities observed over the past months. They are a young species, barely out of their planetary cradle. Their technology is a patchwork of brilliance and primitivity, but it's their behavior that truly perplexes us. The display showed humans in various situations, fighting, yes, but also creating art, sharing meals, comforting each other in moments of loss. Zixtral watched, fascinated despite himself. They are not a hive mind, yet they coordinate with uncanny efficiency, Krelnax continued. They possess no natural defenses, yet they throw themselves into battle with fervor. And their capacity for innovation, it's unlike anything we've seen. Zixtral's tendrils curled thoughtfully. Perhaps we have underestimated them, but it changes nothing. The Concordiat cannot allow such unpredictability to exist in the galaxy. Prepare the Void Cascader. Krelnax recoiled slightly. Overseer, the Void Cascader has never been used in actual combat. The consequences could be. The consequences of failure would be far worse, Zixtral interrupted. Execute the order. As Krelnax hurried away, Zixtral turned his attention back to the battle. These humans had proven themselves worthy adversaries, but soon they would learn the true might of the Concordiat. Back on the front lines, Major Zara Kuri led Phantom Squadron through the chaos of battle. Her neural interface hummed with constant updates, each piece of information dragging split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. Phantom 3, watch your 9. She called out, watching as one of her pilots narrowly avoided a barrage of alien fire. Phantom 7, take out that cruiser's port weapons array. As her squadron danced through the void, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Concordiat fleet, while still formidable, seemed to be pulling back, consolidating around their largest ships. Control, this is Phantom Lead, she reported. Enemy fleet is changing formation. They're up to something. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the comm. Understood, Major. All units, prepare for. Her words were cut off by a blinding flash of light. For a moment, Zara thought her ship had been hit, but as her vision cleared, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A massive tear had opened in the fabric of space itself, right in the heart of the human fleet. Ships unlucky enough to be caught in its event horizon were being twisted, stretched, and torn apart. Evasive maneuvers, Zara shouted, her hands flying over her controls. Phantom Squadron scattered, narrowly avoiding the expanding rift. Across the battlefield, human forces scrambled to regroup. The Void Cascader, as the Concordiat called it, had torn a hole in their defenses and was rapidly expanding. On Olympus Station, alarms blared as sensors struggled to make sense of the phenomenon. Dr. Elias Vega stared at the readings in horror and awe. It's like nothing we've ever seen, he muttered, his fingers flying over holographic displays. It's not just destroying our ships, it's unraveling space-time itself. Admiral Chen's face was grim as she assessed the situation. Can we counter it? Elias shook his head. Not directly, not with anything we have. But there might be a way to contain it. As he explained his theory, Chen's eyes widened. It was risky, borderline insane, but it was the only chance they had. Do it, she ordered. And get me Major Kuri. Back in the fray, Zara received her new orders with a mix of determination and disbelief. You want us to do what? Fly into the rift, Major, Chen repeated. Dr. Vega believes that if we can detonate a series of quantum-entangled warheads inside the phenomenon, we might be able to collapse it back on itself. Zara swallowed hard. It was a suicide mission, plain and simple. But as she looked around at the devastation, at the brave men and women fighting and dying to protect humanity, she knew there was only one answer. Phantom Squadron. Form up, she commanded. We've got a date with the void. As Phantom Squadron approached the swirling maw of the rift, the rest of the human fleet engaged in a desperate holding action. They needed to buy time, to keep the Concordiat from realizing what they were attempting. Zara's hands were steady on the controls as she led her squadron into the maelstrom. The moment they crossed the event horizon, reality itself seemed to warp around them. Warning alarms blared as the ship's hulls groaned under impossible stresses. Stay focused, Zara called out, her voice trained. Remember your training. Feel the ship, don't fight it. They pushed deeper into the rift, their stealth technology rendering them virtually invisible, even as space itself tried to tear them apart. At the designated coordinates, they released their payload, a series of warheads linked across quantum states. Detonation in 3, 2, 1. The explosion, when it came, was unlike anything Zara had ever experienced. It was as if the universe itself hiccuped. For a terrifying moment, everything, light, sound, thought, ceased to exist. Then, with a rush that felt like being born again, reality snapped back into place. The rift, caught in the paradox of the quantum detonation, began to collapse in on itself. It's working. Elias shouted back on an Olympus station. The rift is closing. But the Phantom Squadron was nowhere to be seen. As the human fleet regrouped, a stunned silence fell over the battlefield. The Concordiat, their superweapon neutralized, seemed to hesitate for the first time since the war began. In the crystalline chambers of the Concordiat command ship, Overseer Zixtral stared at the holo displays in disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "How could they have possibly countered the Void Cascader?" Krulnax, equally shocked, could only shake his head. "Overseer, I don't know. Our models, our simulations, they all indicate that this should have been impossible." Zixtral's tendrils writhed in agitation. These humans, they defy all logic, all reason. They achieve the impossible through sheer force of will. For the first time in his long life, the Overseer felt something akin to fear. Perhaps we have made a grave error in judgment. Back in the human fleet, celebration was tempered by the loss of Phantom Squadron. Admiral Chen stood before the holo displays, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. They had won a significant victory, but at a terrible cost. "Admiral," a young ensign called out, "we're picking up something on long-range sensors. It's Phantom Squadron." All eyes turned to the main display as a group of battered but intact ships limped back towards the fleet. Somehow, against all odds, Zara and her team had survived their trip into the void. As the squadron docked with Olympus Station, Zara stumbled out of her cockpit, her legs shaky, but her eyes bright with the fire of survival. She was immediately enveloped in a crushing hug by Dr. Vega. "You did it," he whispered. "You actually did it." Zara managed a weak smile. "Just following orders, Doc. Though next time, maybe come up with a plan that doesn't involve flying into a hole in the universe." The moment of levity was short-lived. Admiral Chen approached, her face serious. "Major, we need a full debriefing. Whatever you saw in there, it could change everything." As Zara recounted her experience, describing realities that shifted like quicksand and glimpses of dimensions beyond human comprehension, a plan began to form in Chen's mind. The Concordiat had unknowingly given humanity a weapon, knowledge of the very fabric of space-time itself. "We've bloodied their nose," Chen said, addressing her command staff. "But this war is far from over. The Concordiat will regroup, adapt. We need to press our advantage while we have it." Dr. Vega nodded enthusiastically. The data from the Void Cascader and Phantom Squadron's experience. Given time, we might be able to develop our own space-time manipulation technology. Chen's eyes gleamed with determination. "Then that's exactly what we'll do. Humanity has proven its worth among the stars. Now we'll show the Concordiat and the galaxy that we're here to stay." As the meeting adjourned and plans were set in motion, Zara found a quiet moment to look out at the stars. The void that had nearly claimed her now seemed less threatening, more inviting. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The battle for Mars had been won, but the war for humanity's future among the stars was just beginning. And for the first time since the conflict began, the balance of power had shifted. The Concordiat, once seemingly invincible, now faced an enemy they couldn't predict or control. Humanity, with its boundless creativity and indomitable spirit, was ready to take the fight to the stars, turning the tide. The weeks following the Battle of Mars were a whirlwind of activity for humanity. The victory, while significant, had come at a great cost. The outer colonies of the solar system lay in ruins, millions of lives lost to the Concordiat's relentless advance. Yet, in the face of such devastation, the human spirit remained unbroken. On Earth, in the sprawling underground complex of Project Prometheus, Dr. Elias Vega worked tirelessly. The data gathered from the Void Cascader incident and Phantom Squadron's harrowing journey had opened up new avenues of research that bordered on the impossible. It's like trying to write poetry in a language we're only beginning to understand, Elias muttered, his eyes fixed on holographic representations of space-time fluctuations. Beside him, Major Zara Khoury watched the swirling patterns with a mixture of fascination and unease. Her experience inside the rift had left her changed, more attuned to the subtle rhythms of the universe. "But we are learning, aren't we?" she asked, reaching out to touch one of the holograms. As her fingers passed through it, the pattern seemed to resonate, shifting in ways that defied the models. Elias's eyes widened. "Zara, do that again." As Zara interacted with the holograms, Elias furiously took notes. "It's you," he said, excitement building in his voice. "Your experience in the rift, it's changed you on a quantum level. You're not just seeing these patterns, you're interacting with them." The implications were staggering. If they could harness this ability, replicate it. "We need to talk to Admiral Chen," Elias said, already reaching for his comm unit. "This could change everything." In the crystalline halls of the Concordiat flagship, Overseer Zix Troll faced the High Council. The massive holo-projection of the ancient beings flickered ominously, their disappointment palpable even across the vast distances of space. "You have failed us, Zix Troll." The lead counselor's voice resonated, each word carrying the weight of eons. These humans were to be a simple conquest, a footnote in our glorious expansion. Instead, they have become a threat. Zix Troll's form shimmered with shame and defiance. "Counselors, I admit I underestimated them. But I assure you, this setback is temporary. We will crush these upstarts and bring order to their chaotic system." "See that you do," another counselor intoned. "The Concordiat has stood for millions of years. We will not be undone by a species barely out of its cradle." As the projection faded, Zix Troll turned to his advisors. "Prepare the fleet. We will strike at the heart of their system. This time, we will not rest until every human world is brought to heel." Back on Earth, Admiral Jessica Chen stood before the United Earth Alliance Council. The room was tense, filled with leaders from every nation and colony that still stood. Back on Earth, Admiral Jessica Chen stood before the United Earth Alliance Council. The room was tense, filled with leaders from every nation and colony that still stood. "The Concordiat will return," Chen began, her voice steady. "And when they do, they will hit us with everything they have. But thanks to the brilliant work of Dr. Vega and the bravery of Major Khoury, we now have a chance, not just to survive, but to win." Murmurs filled the room as Chen laid out the plan. It was audacious, borderline insane, but after everything humanity had been through, insanity seemed like their best option. "Project Harmony," Chen continued, "will allow us to manipulate space-time itself. We can create rifts of our own, deploy ships instantly across vast distances, and potentially even shield entire planets from attack." The council erupted in a mixture of excitement and skepticism. It sounded like something out of science fiction, even in a world where faster-than-light travel was commonplace. "And you're certain this will work?" President Nkrumah asked, his eyes narrowing. Chen nodded to Dr. Vega, who stepped forward. "The principles are sound," he explained. "Major Khoury's unique quantum state has given us insights we never thought possible. With her as a template, we can train others to perceive and manipulate the fabric of space-time." "It's not without risks," Zara added, her voice carrying the weight of her experiences. "But it's our best shot at ending this war before we lose everything." The council deliberated, weighing the risks against the very real threat of extinction. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Project Harmony would proceed at full speed. The next months were a blur of feverish activity, as shipyards across the solar system churned out vessels equipped with the new Harmony drives. Zara found herself at the center of an intensive training program. Those who showed sensitivity to the quantum fluctuations were put through rigorous mental and physical conditioning, learning to perceive and manipulate the very fabric of reality. It wasn't easy. Many couldn't handle the strain, their minds buckling under the weight of perceiving multiple dimensions simultaneously. But those who succeeded became something more than human, living conduits to the cosmic forces that shaped the universe. As humanity prepared for what they hoped would be the final confrontation, long-range sensors picked up the approach of the Concordiate fleet. It was massive, dwarfing even their previous force. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's most advanced warship. Around her, a fleet of Harmony-equipped vessels waited, their crews a mixture of anticipation and fear. "This is it," Chen addressed the fleet, her words carried to every ship and station in the system. "Everything we fought for, everything we've lost and gained, has led to this moment. The Concordiat thinks they're coming to end us. Instead, they'll find that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars." As the Concordiat fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, they were met not with panic or desperation, but with a coordinated assault unlike anything they had ever faced. Human ships blinked in and out of existence, appearing inside the Concordiat formation to unleash devastating attacks before vanishing again. Rifts in space-time opened and closed, swallowing enemy vessels whole or depositing them light years away from the battle. On the Defiance bridge, Zara stood at a specially designed control interface, her mind merged with the ship's Harmony drive. Through her, the fabric of space itself became a weapon, bending and twisting to humanity's will. The Concordiat, for all their technological might, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their rigid tactics and reliance on brute force were no match for the fluidity and unpredictability of the human assault. Overseer Zixtral watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. "Impossible," he muttered, his crystalline form vibrating with stress. How could they have advanced so quickly? As the battle raged, it became clear that the tide had turned. The Concordiat, once seemingly invincible, was being pushed back, their formations shattered, their mighty ships reduced to drifting debris. In a desperate gambit, Zixtral ordered his flagship to charge directly at Earth, hoping to at least take out humanity's homeworld before their defeat. But as the massive vessel bore down on the blue planet, it found its path blocked by a shimmering wall of distorted space. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm systems of every Concordiat ship still functioning. "Attention Concordiat forces. Your invasion has failed. Surrender now, or face total annihilation." For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Concordiat ships began powering down their weapons. The great armada that had threatened to end humanity's existence was now adrift, defeated not just by superior tactics, but by the very laws of physics they thought they understood. As the realization of victory swept through the human fleet, cheers erupted on every ship and station. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had not just survived, but triumphed. But even in this moment of triumph, Admiral Chen and her team knew that this was just the beginning. They had won the war, but now came the real challenge, forging a lasting peace with the species that had sought their extinction. As the Defiant moved to accept the Concordiat's surrender, Chen turned to Zara. "Major, I think it's time we had a chat with our would-be conquerors. Let's see if we can't turn this ending into a new beginning." The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as humanity prepared to take its first steps into a larger, more complex galactic community. The price of peace had been high, but in paying it, they had proven themselves worthy of the cosmos. The price of peace. The Great Hall of the United Earth Alliance headquarters in Geneva buzzed with tension. It had been 3 months since the decisive battle that ended the Concordiat invasion, and now representatives from both species sat across from each other, the weight of history heavy on their shoulders. Admiral Jessica Chen, now hailed as the savior of humanity, took a deep breath as she prepared to address the assembly. Beside her sat Overseer Zixtrol, his crystalline form dimmed with what humans had come to recognize as shame and resignation. "We gather here today," Chen began, her voice carrying across the hushed room, "not as victors and vanquished, but as two species standing at a crossroads. The path that led us here was paved with destruction and loss, but the path forward, that is ours to shape." Zixtrol's multifaceted eyes blinked in rapid succession, a gesture that the human diplomats had learned indicated deep thought. "The Concordiat has stood for millions of years," he said, his words translated smoothly by the advanced systems developed during the war. "We have brought order to countless worlds, unified warring species, and pushed back the entropy of the universe itself. Yet in our certainty, we became rigid, inflexible." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the human delegation. "You humans, in your brief existence, have shown us something we had forgotten: the power of adaptation, of seeing the universe not as it is, but as it could be." The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. For many humans, it was still difficult to see the Concordiat as anything other than the monstrous invaders who had threatened their very existence. But Chen knew that true peace would require more than just a cessation of hostilities. "We've all paid a heavy price to reach this point," Chen continued. "Worlds have been ravaged, millions of lives lost on both sides. But now we have a chance, perhaps the only chance we'll get, to build something new, a partnership between our species that could reshape the galaxy." As Chen spoke, holographic displays activated around the room, showing the devastation wrought by the war. But alongside images of ruined colonies and shattered fleets were projections of what could be: joint scientific endeavors, the restoration of damaged ecosystems, and the exploration of realms beyond either species' current understanding. Dr. Elias Vega stepped forward, his eyes bright with excitement despite the solemnity of the occasion. "The Harmony technology that turned the tide of the war, it's just the beginning. With the Concordiat's vast knowledge of the universe and humanity's innovative spirit, we could unlock secrets that neither of us could discover alone." Zixtrol's form shimmered, a gesture that humans had learned to interpret as interest. "You propose a true collaboration, then? Not simply a truce, but a joining of our civilizations?" "We do," Chen nodded, "but such a partnership must be built on equality and mutual respect. The Concordiat can no longer see itself as the sole arbiter of galactic order, and humanity must be willing to learn from your experiences, to temper our ambition with wisdom." The negotiations that followed were intense, often heated. Centuries of Concordiat expansion and months of brutal war were not easily set aside. But as the days passed, a framework began to emerge, one that would reshape not just Earth and the Concordiat, but the entire galaxy. The Galactic Accord, as it came to be known, established a new order. The Concordiat would share its advanced technology and vast stores of knowledge, helping humanity rebuild and expand. In return, humans would bring their unique perspective and adaptability to bear on the challenges facing the galaxy. But the price of peace was high. Both sides had to make concessions that were bitter pills to swallow. The Concordiat agreed to dismantle its empire, transforming from a conquering force into a confederation of equal partners. This caused upheaval among their people, with some factions resisting the change fiercely. Humanity, for its part, had to accept limits on its expansion and use of the Harmony technology. The power to manipulate space-time was too great to be wielded without oversight, and safeguards were put in place to prevent its misuse. As the final terms were hammered out, Major Zara Kori found herself standing before the assembly. As one of the first humans to truly comprehend the nature of space-time, her insights were crucial to the accords. What we've discovered, what we've become capable of, it's bigger than just our two species, she said, her voice quiet but intense. We're touching the fundamental forces of the universe itself. With that power comes a responsibility, not just to our own peoples, but to all of existence. Her words resonated with both humans and Concordiat alike. The accords were expanded to include provisions for joint exploration of the phenomena they had only begun to understand, with safeguards to protect the very fabric of reality from careless tampering. As the Galactic Accord was finally signed, a sense of cautious hope filled the Great Hall. It wasn't a perfect solution. There were still those on both sides who viewed the other with suspicion or outright hostility. But it was a beginning. In the years that followed, the solar system became a hub of frenetic activity. Concordiat engineers worked alongside human scientists to rebuild shattered worlds. The Harmony technology, carefully regulated, was used to restore ecosystems and create habitats in places once thought uninhabitable. Joint expeditions ventured into the depths of the galaxy, exploring realms that neither species had dared to tread alone. The mysteries of dark matter, the nature of cosmic strings, and the secrets of higher dimensions began to unfold before their combined efforts. But perhaps the most profound changes were cultural. As humans and Concordiat worked and lived together, they began to understand each other in ways that went beyond mere diplomacy. Art, music, philosophy, all were transformed by the exchange of ideas between species that had once been mortal enemies. On the 5th anniversary of the Galactic Accord, Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the newly formed Galactic Council, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive structure orbiting the Sun at the heart of the solar system. Beside her stood Overseer Zixtrol, his crystalline form glowing with colors that humans had learned to associate with contentment and hope. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Chen asked, gazing out at the bustling activity around them. Ships of human and Concordiat design moved in harmony, their crews working together as if they had never known conflict. Zixtrol's form shimmered in what Chen now recognized as amusement. "Never," he admitted. "In all our millennia of existence, we never encountered a species quite like yours. You humans, you taught us how to dream again." Chen smiled, but her eyes held a hint of sadness. "We paid a heavy price for this peace. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it." "The price of peace is always high," Zixtrol said softly. "But the alternative, that price is infinitely higher. What we've built here, what we're continuing to build, it's changing the very nature of the galaxy, perhaps even the universe itself." As they spoke, a group of children, human and Concordiat younglings, passed by, engaged in animated discussion about their latest lessons in multi-dimensional physics. Chen watched them go, marveling at how natural their interaction seemed. "You're right," she said finally. "The price was high. But what we've gained, it's beyond measure. We've not just secured peace for our time, but laid the foundation for a future neither of us could have imagined alone." As the sun set on another day in this new era of galactic cooperation, the stars seemed to shine with renewed brilliance. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The price of peace had indeed been high, but in paying it, they had opened the door to a future limited only by the bounds of imagination itself. The universe, vast and mysterious, beckoned, and together, humanity and the Concordiat stood ready to answer its call, united in their quest to unlock the deepest secrets of existence. The adventure, it seemed, was only just beginning.